Welcome back to a brand new edition of Pod by the Bay, presented by the Bay Area Examiner and the Bay Area Examiner.com. I'm Seth Varnadore, joined by Robert Steeg. Steeg, how are you doing on this lovely May Wednesday?
Phenomenal. I went for a 35-minute run today at 3:00 on the Tampa Riverwalk.
Ooh.
That was a grave mistake. Let me tell you something.
Yes.
It was 93 degrees. The feels like was 99. I sweated through everything. I sweated through the clothes that I threw on when I got home. It was just impeccable. But no, it's been good. It's been nice. How are things for you, Seth? What's going on in the Varnadore world? The Varna world?
All good. Schools, or school's coming to an end, so we're getting to that time of year where we've got a kindergarten graduation coming up next weekend. We've got end of year things for gymnastics and karate and all that kind of stuff. So we're coming up on some big things here at the end of the year. School winds down. So, but other than that, it's been great. It is.
Hell yeah.
We are hitting that point of the year where it's starting to get very hot, though. So that should be fun. We've got actually some more news and things to talk about this week than I would think at this time of the year. We'll start in the football world. The portal closed last week, but if you're in the portal, you can kind of commit whenever you want up until like the first day of practice, right? You just got to get enrolled before then. USF seemingly maybe this tells us something about Kawan Powell's injury in the spring game. There's possibly something to read there, but USF got a commitment from a running back. Steve, what can you tell us about Teron Keith?
Yeah, so I posted an ominous GIF earlier saying it's a blast from the past, and some people thought, maybe some good old folks are coming back to USF, and not that way. So Teron, if you've been around the site, if you've been around the blog for a little bit, he was a USF commit way back in 2019 with previous head coach Charlie Strong. Ended up decommitting about 2 weeks before Charlie Strong got fired. That was I think he was actually the catalyst of like 5 other guys decommitted, and then Charlie Strong got fired, and then class basically kind of shuttered from there. But he was a running back from mainland Florida, up in DeLand, or from mainland high school over near DeLand. Ended up going to Bowling Green and being very successful for the Falcons there. He kind of he was a Swiss Army knife player for them. Just to read his stats, off the cuff from the career. 151 carries for 693 yards, 4.6 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. 104 receptions for 1,034 yards at about 9.9 yards per catch and 8 touchdowns. And then 48 kick returns for 1,145 yards and 1 touchdown. So I threw some stats to the people in our Ponderosa section earlier to talk about his numbers purely from last year. Sitting at 66 carries, 390 yards, 44 catches, 457 yards, and then 7 kickoff returns for 154 yards. Those 693 rushing yards alone were more than Mikey Dukes. Those receiving yards alone were more than Joffrey Brown. And those kick return yards were more than Jaden Alexis, Kelly Joyner, and Mikey Dukes combined. And you have them in one player. So, that's pretty good. If I could compare him to anyone to try to make a comparison to let people know what type of player he is, he was in the same class as Brian Battie. And a certain friend of the show, Kerwin Bell, recruited both Ryan Battie and Teron Keith to USF. Those Swiss Army knife running backs can catch out of the backfield, maybe throw a pass here and there, can kind of do it all. That's what they're looking for. So honestly, phenomenal pickup.
Yeah, smaller, explosive guy. And he's one of these guys, interestingly, that saw his. So he was a 3-star, 81 on 24/7 Sports as a recruit. He's one of these guys that have seen his transfer ranking go up. He was still a 3-star, but an 86 on 24/7. So a good player, and as Steve mentioned, a really productive player. Once in future bowl, Teron Keith has finally made it in.
They all come around eventually.
And it certainly seems like he's just a nice, like we talked about, like a little bit luxury. He's just kind of a guy that you can get the ball to in a lot of different ways. So if you do have an injury at that running back position, this is a nice way to kind of make up for it. You go out and get a pretty good one. I imagine he's got 1 year left, right? So I imagine he's been sold a role where he will be playing. So it's not just totally a depth piece. I think he'd be pretty good. So
at the very least, kick return.
Yeah, a little juice there.
We don't really have one.
So if he was being recruited by Kerwin, that means he's probably pretty explosive because they don't mind if you're small as long as you're explosive. He's 5'9", 180, like I said, so he's probably pretty explosive. So just another explosive guy, and I think that's one thing we all thought we're hoping Kelly Joyner could provide it, being fully healthy and back at running back, but there's just a little bit of explosiveness missing from that running back room. So if he can provide that, I think you're in really good shape there. So
yeah.
All right, moving on. We got another transfer portal pickup for USF. Women's basketball this week. Men's basketball is still working it, but women's basketball seems to be about full now. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, if I'm doing my math right, completely, then they should be full. So they recently got a commitment from another fellow conference mate. They got a commitment from, I'm going to butcher this name and I'm going to apologize. I believe it's Fatou Diakite. She was a freshman center from Charlotte. So she'll join Ines Piper as a fellow conference mate, stretching to the international flavor man himself, Jose Fernandez. Pretty good. She got some really strong playing time as a freshman. She's 6'3" in women's basketball standards. That's like being 7 foot.
Yeah.
So pretty good size. Not mind-blowing stats by any stretch of the imagination, but consistently rebounded, consistently got into the paint and scored it at will at times. Added a few blocks, added a few steals along with it. So a plenty good pickup. And again, I believe this closes out the class. If I'm counting everything correctly, they have 14 girls on scholarship right now. I'm not going to list them because I can't remember their names and I can't pronounce half of them either. But that should end women's basketball, and I think men's basketball is going to be wrapping up shortly as well. So hopefully it's get these people on campus, get them started on some workouts, and start the gelling process. You still have your main kind of 6 core that you had in women's basketball. So that's a good sign. And these are just kind of additional players to add, some freshmen, some transfers, some missing pieces too. So I'm excited to see what Jose is going to be cooking up this year. He's definitely gone very defensive heavy, which tells me some things about the lack of defense from last year and how he's course correcting it. So we'll see how it all ends up.
And I was going to say some size too, right? Like it seems like that's what's jumped out to me a little bit. That I know the girl from Brazil, Jennifer Silva, was 6'4". You see this girl's pretty tall as well. So definitely some size inside, help rebound and all that kind of stuff. So and definitely will help on the defensive end of the floor too. So so yeah, there seems to be a concerted effort to get some size down low.
And not just not just like size, but also like I don't want to say this because it's women's basketball, but like beef. I think the team that USF put together last year was very finesse.
A little tough.
Right now you're a little
little grit, just say
a little bit more.
Let's say grit.
Grit's perfect. Yeah, this team's going to be grittier, I think. which is fantastic.
Yeah, there we go. So USF women's basketball seemingly looks like there's going to be a lot of new faces, but probably going to feel a lot better, hopefully, than last season. Let's pivot to softball and some sports. We've got a couple sports for their seasons kind of coming to a close here. Let's talk softball, Steeg. Any thoughts on this softball season, the softball team?
Yeah, it was an average year, I think. Someone asked in the Discord and said, what's going on with softball? They did fine.
Lost to Tulsa. I should say they lost to Tulsa today in the first round of the conference tournament to bring their season record to 34-22.
Yeah, so they didn't do bad. Like the litmus test, if you're having a phenomenal season for softball, is like 40 wins. Like 40 wins is like your threshold. So at 34, you didn't do terrible. You got some great wins throughout the year. You had a great win at Florida. You had some great upsets against like Michigan and you beat Florida Atlantic at home. They did fine in some circumstances, but they just weren't consistent enough on the bats. I mentioned this probably like 30 to 40 times in the Discord. It was like the defense is going to be phenomenal this year. Like Kathy Garcia Soto was named co-defensive player of the year in the conference. First time the conference has ever had a back-to-back winner in that regard. So her, along with the rest of the infield and some added pieces of that outfield, they very rarely made an error at all. So good stuff there. Pitching wise, you were going to go as far as where Peyton Dixon was going to take you. You could get some good innings out of Belle Sarja and Lexi Kopko and Julia Apostolopoulos, the great girl. You're going to go as far as what Peyton Dixon was going to give you, though. Phenomenal pitcher as a true sophomore. She's really coming to her own. I'm expecting her to take, again, that giant leap forward that these pitchers do in year 3 and become kind of the new ace for USF. But unfortunately, the bats is where it failed USF this year. And today was no better example. You lost 2-1 to Tulsa. Peyton Dixon threw a 3-hitter. Those 3 hits, all 3 of them were doubles. And only 2 of them were for RBIs. And you had 6 hits, I think 5 or 6 hits today. You left 8 girls on the base and you lost 2-1. Like, it's kind of where it's at right now. So they definitely have some soul searching. I think some girls really haven't panned out. The unfortunate thing is some of your best defensive players didn't do that well hitting this year. And it's you have to make a decision. Either you're going to have phenomenal defense and you're going to limit runs, or you might try to spark a new, streaker, new hitter or something into the mix. But overall, not a terrible year, not a great year. Average is where it's going to be. They have some things that they're going to address, and I think there's going to be some changes after the season as well.
All right. Well, so their season is done. Unfortunately, moving on to USF women's golf, also had their season close out today. Was a really good season for them. They made back-to-back NCAA regionals for the first time since 2001, 2002. And I think they ended up finishing 8th in their regional. Needed top 5 to move on. Melanie Green, who'd been awesome all year, shot a 69, shot a -3, and finished tied for 13th. I don't believe she will move on, but she paced the team. And they were just, let's see, they finished 8th at +20 overall. Number 5 was -2. So it wasn't they weren't close, but there was a pretty big delineation. So Oregon State finished 5th, -2. Tennessee was +3 at 6, and North Texas was +14. At 7, they did end up beating a team from a little bit up by 4 there,
which is the best consolation prize.
Finished +21. So
I think after the first day, after the first round, I think USF and UCF were like kind of neck and neck, but like USF was not going to qualify at that point. I think they were like 5 over, and like whoever was leading just was pacing, and so we all accepted defeat, and we were all like, just beat UCF. That's really what we're going to ask for here. They tough course to some, apparently not so tough to others. I don't know how golf works.
Yeah, I mean, it could be tough. It could be length, just whatever. Even the grass can be different. It could be weird. But Melanie Green was able to. She finished -4 for the regional. Alyssa Montgomery finished at +2. She was second. But after that, everybody was in double digits over par. So, that was kind of the big difference there. The winning score is -21. That is insane. So, men's golf still will be, I believe their regionals coming up soon. So we'll see how they do. But women's golf, unfortunately, their season is over. But it was a really good season, and I don't know how the transfer portal in golf works or anything like that. How many people are coming back? But the way that program's been the last few years, you'd expect them to kind of keep it rolling. So
yeah,
they're on the rise, it seems. So that's good, but just couldn't quite get over that hump this year.
I know they have one girl that's coming in that's like really good, from England. I think golf is like the one thing that I try my darndest to try to figure out information for, and it's even harder to find out stuff. I just had to wait until USF just makes announcements on things. But I know one of the girls they have coming in is really, really good. And Melanie Green is done. She's out of eligibility. So we'll see what the team has in store for us next year.
Well, she'll be tough to replace. She will be going on to play in the Arnold Palmer Cup. So she'll get to represent Team USA here coming up. But unfortunately, everybody else's season is over. Steeg, let's talk baseball. Team's officially under 500 right now at 23-25. Midweek loss to Florida yesterday. Played ECU on the road last weekend. I think Nathan thought there could be a run rule, and there was in the Friday game. 11-1, 7 innings. Lost 8-5 the next day, the first leg of a doubleheader, and then won 5-4 in 7 innings in the second leg of the doubleheader.
Yeah, it was a weird weekend.
Yeah.
I personally, I was shocked that they played 2 on Sunday. I came to find out that they were always planning on leaving on Monday. So I was like, okay, you had a midweek game in state that was like 2 hours away. So, okay, that kind of makes sense there. But yeah, I mean, Friday went about how we thought it was going to go.
ECU can mention number 5 team in the country.
Yes. Now they're number 6. Oh, darn. They dropped 1 spot because they lost to us. But Trey Savage was the starting pitch, is ECU's ace. He is their Friday pitcher. He is their best player. He is the number 11 prospect in college baseball. Every mock draft has him going top 15. He's usually the 3rd or 4th pitcher taken off the board. He is probably the best pitcher that USF has faced this entire year, and is probably the best pitcher that USF is going to face for the next 3 years. So he did what he needed to do against you, which is totally fine. That game getting canceled on Saturday due to food poisoning. Glad the team made it at least a hearty recovery from that to be able to play on Sunday. And then splitting a doubleheader, you got kind of lucky because traditionally if you do a doubleheader, you do 7 in the first and then 9 in the second. So you got kind of lucky because I think, and we were all feeling it too, that if that game was going to go 9 innings, that USF was going to lose the second one. But you hit a lot better in game 2, and your bullpen did phenomenal. And in fact, I'll even go as so far to say is the last 2 outings by USF, and that includes the midweek game against Florida. The bullpen did well, all things considered. And for how bad the bullpen has been this year for USF, I'll take that against 2 really good teams. The midweek game against Florida's having a down year. They still have one of the best hitters in college baseball. If you haven't seen it, there's been quite a lot of stir about USF putting 7 guys in the outfield to counter Joe Cagliano from Florida.
Jack Cagliano.
Yes, who has like 59 home runs and 736 doubles or triples or whatever. And he hit the absolute worst home run I've ever seen, just ever. Opposite corner, just looked like he wasn't even trying to hit the ball, and the ball just hit off his bat. It just so happened to go 396 yards right over, or 96 feet right over the left field wall. So, whatever. But yeah, 4-1 loss against Florida. Bullpen did well. If you can get
Florida's a lot like USF. They just sort of like have a lot of Major League Baseball players.
Yeah.
But they're pretty much the same team. I think their ERAs are about the same. So both teams have some pitching issues.
A lot of pitching issues.
So probably a lower scoring game than many would have expected.
Right. It was yeah. I mean, honestly, with how everything was going, I was like, oh, we'll just chalk it up, especially coming off of food poisoning and a road trip.
Yeah.
All bets were off. But traveling to UTSA this weekend for the season finale. Hopefully you can win a game. UTSA is pretty good this year at baseball. So we'll
two more weekend series. You got UTSA this weekend, UAB the following weekend, and UNF as the midweek game. And then after that, you're in tournament play. So, and I would imagine you're going to need another magical run to continue the season. So, a very magical. How magical?
I can't say anything.
Quite magical run here. All right, so let's finish with track and field. Not much news for them, but Friday is the American Conference Championships, the outdoor track and field championships. This team has been seemingly setting records and winning races and competitions all year. Do you expect anything different this weekend, Steve?
Nope. I expect the men.
Are they a favorite for the conference championship?
I
know with track it's so much. There's so many
Right.
different things that go into it, so many different events. But do we would not be shocked, I'm assuming, based on their ranking and everything.
Yeah,
if they come out with the championship this weekend.
They should be. The men should. Their biggest competition is probably going to end up being Wichita State. Wichita State historically has a really good field side of their program and does just enough on the track side to compete. Really, it's with the way that these events go down. You do your preliminaries, and then you do your preliminary qualifiers, and then you have your final rounds, and then you have your heats, and then you go on from there. And so the way for USF to be successful and the way you realistically win conference championships is not having just enough first place. Like you have to be very well rounded. You have to get like 4 to 5 guys to finish within the top 10 of any final. That's how USF absolutely blew everyone's pants off in the indoor. Was like at events like the 100 meter events where you have 8 guys competing and USF has 5 of them. USF automatically gets those points. So it goes 10 points for first place, 9 points second, 8 go all the way down. Yeah. And so and it matters more for like the running events, like the field events, everyone's already in qualifying and everyone's already doing it. So that matters a little bit less. That just matters like a Romaine Beckford, where if you get first place, you get 10 points. Yeah. And usually everyone's pretty well rounded. You don't have like 5 shot putters on your team.
Yeah.
And so that's where USF is going to be successful is they don't have one good runner. They have 6. They don't have one good hurdler. They have 4.
They've swept a couple of times, haven't they? 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm. And that's when that's when it gets silly is whenever you have 1, 2, 3, and everyone looks at like the 4x100s and the 4x200s. Those, I mean, you get if you may at the most have 2 teams competing, but usually you don't. So those matter less. It's the individual events that USF is going to be successful at, and I would be shocked. Hear it now and hear me loud and proud. I would be absolutely shocked if USF does not win in record fashion. Like one of the, they are head and shoulders so much better than everyone else.
Not only a win, a record win. As they said in the Mighty Ducks, it's not worth the winning if you can't win big. So that is it for this week's episode of Pod by the BAE. Just a quick kind of whip around here of USF athletics. We are going to go now into the Ponderosa, the Patreon exclusive podcast for the Bayer Examiner, and do a little Q&A. We've solicited some questions in our Discord, which for $5 you can become a member of that, where we put kind of all the news before it breaks whenever we can, recruiting stuff, football stuff, anything we get that we're allowed to share, we get to you guys before it breaks anywhere else. You can do all that for $5. So join the Patreon for $5, get there, and $10 will get you this podcast we're about to go record. So thank you guys for listening. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.